Swing and a drive. Right field and deep. Back goes Aquino. It's got a chance. Gone. Get out the tape measure. Long gone.
Fly the W!
Cubs fans, it's time to fly the W with Dustin Rhodes and Paul Crawley-Jean.
You are watching the Fly the W podcast. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and most importantly, subscribe to our podcast. Follow us on all the socials. Fly the W670 on Twitter and Instagram. Fly the W on Facebook, or email us at flythew670@gmail.com. Ladies and gentlemen, it just would not be spring training the night before the first spring training game of the season if we did not have Tim Sheridan, the voice of Sloan Park, here with us. Tim, how you doing, buddy?
I'm absolutely fantastic. Glad to be here.
Now, Tim, for those people that have not seen you on the podcast or heard you on the podcast, and you've done other podcasts as well, can you give our listeners just a little bit of an idea of how you got into being the voice of spring training for the Cubs?
Very simple story. I was actually in a class at Mesa Community College. They came in. It was a broadcasting class. Someone came in, said, "Does anyone want to help out at Cubs spring training?" And my hand was up that quick, and that is literally how it happened.
And now it's been about, what, 42 years?
This is my 42nd straight season. Yes, my friend.
42 years. And, you know, as we're kind of getting ready and we've been watching all these videos there, to me, I kind of think about, you know, when you probably first started at old Hohokam Park, just the complete difference when you compare what spring training used to be, you know, 20 years ago, and then seeing what it is now with the media, with people now just having their own cell phones and being to broadcast live from Sloan, batting practices and BP and all these pitching drills and everything. It's just got to be kind of surreal for you.
It is surreal because I will be honest, I was just thinking about this the other day. I was at Sloan as usual, as I happened to be, and everybody, everywhere I looked, there was a cell phone recording, there was a camera down, you know, here, there, all outside the fence. But you actually can be so close to the action that everybody's probably taking pretty damn good video, if you ask me, or photos, whatever they're doing. But it just made my mind think back to not too long ago when none of this was possible, you know, and essentially I was like the oddball back in, like, say, late 80s, early 90s, when I actually had a home video camera with me and brought it up into the press box with me. Nobody else had, you know, was bringing a home video. It was literally either the TV stations who came out, and they were far and few between because it was spring training. Remember, the games don't matter. Nobody cares. And now it's like it's another world. It's crazy.
You know, speaking of the late 80s and early 90s, I'm sure, Tim, you saw this picture the other day. Sean Dunston, Mark Grace, Rhino, Sutt, and, of course, Berge. But, you know, for four out of those 5 Cubs Hall of Famers, you saw them when they were pretty much young pups for the most part.
Oh, exactly. 1984, you know, that was my first spring. So that takes us back to quite an amazing season in itself. But so to be there in the start of that, and I was lucky enough, there's a Northside baseball camp that is kind of picking up where the Hunley camp took kind of left because COVID and everything kind of messed things up for a bit there. Anyhow, I was down in Tucson and I got a chance to talk in depth with Sean Dunston, and I hadn't seen him in ages, and it was just such a pleasure. And I talked to him about, you know, announcing him and Gracie and Sandberg back in the day, and he's like, "I got to hear that. Come on." He's like, "Oh yeah, I remember. That's like so cool." Because, you know, sometimes it's either, you know, it's a sound, it's a voice that can take you back down memory lane, but it's also like the smell. You know, when I first got to the old Hohokam Stadium, speaking of, you know, yesteryear in spring training, that would be two stadiums ago. There's Sloan, and then there was Hocom, which the A's play at now, even though they kind of redid that. But then the one that was torn down before that, after the 96 spring, I would get there, and every spring, and that press box was situated right above the main concession stand. So all of the aromas from like the hot dogs and the popcorn and everything would just like waft straight up, when it was actually wide open, because there was only a fence on the back of the press box and nothing going out front, no glass booths or anything. So it was literally like open to the elements, but I could just smell that every spring. I'm like, I'm back, I'm here, so that brings me back, way back.
And I got to tell you, just watching a lot of the pictures and videos of people taken of Sutcliffe and Sandberg and those, and even Sutcliffe Sutcliffe's been coming out for years.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Just helping the young guys. I just love to see that knowledge passed down from generation to generation of ball players. And I don't know. I mean, to me, like sometimes when I still see Rhino or Dunston, I'm like, hey, I bet they could still play, right?
Well, exactly. And, I think you probably heard and read that, Rhino being around has kind of been like a real boost. He's been battling, health problems for, the last while. And everyone's been kind of pulling for him in Cubs world, and to see him out there and kind of, giving that energy. I think even the young players, they may not have seen him, but they've heard about the name. And, so I think it's a really cool thing to see those guys there. And Fergie, Fergie just keeps on going, man. I love that guy.
And I don't know if you saw this story by Andy Martinez, but Miguel Amaya actually brought a Sandberg jersey to get autographed, not knowing that he was going to be there, but just in case. So, you love to see the young people kind of respecting, the guys that came before them. And it's really awesome. And so as we kind of get ready for the game tomorrow, for people that have not been to Sloan Park, what kind of advice or what kind of tips would you give our first timers that are coming out to spring training?
Well, in just the first tip about the game tomorrow is don't go to Sloan Park, because it's at Camelback Ranch against the Dodgers. And then Friday is back at Sloan against the Dodgers. So it's the 1-2, which is interesting because they're going to open up 1-2 in Japan, in a few more weeks. So, but tips going out to Sloan Park, it's like the usual things you think of when you want to go to a ball game. It's like, get there a little earlier than you think, because traffic is not great. But once you get past that barrier, that's kind of a big thing. But they have tailgating and all that kind of stuff at Sloan Park, which is nice. And the weather right now is just turning like perfect. I think it's like 76, 78 and sunshine today. We're looking at similar 78, 80 right down through the next couple weeks. And so at least a 10-day anyhow. So that's exciting. Yeah, if you want to get autographs and stuff, get there early, get there when they let you in, which is, I think it's 11:30 for a 105 game, and most of our games are 105. So go down by the third base line, the Cubs side of the dugout, if you want to get some autographs and kind of hang there. The players come in and out when they're practicing before the game gets going, but you got to get there early, otherwise they're going to move you out as it gets close to game time for the people who actually have tickets there, but they'll let you try for a while. Sometimes they're doing batting practice in the main stadium, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're doing batting practice right outside. They have another field that's just between the Cubs like locker room and facility, because they have to walk from there to the stadium, which they did purposefully so that people could interact with the players as they come to the stadium. So that's another place where you'd want to be, because they have to go through a path. If you want to interact with them at all, or maybe catch an autograph, a photograph, that's the place to be. So those are just a few little things off the top.
Absolutely. And don't forget to stop by the Club 400 tent and get yourself some old style and some JP's pizza. That's always a blast. And when we think about this Japan thing, this Japan trip, the Tokyo series, it does bring me back to the early, to the aughts, the 2000, when the Mets played the Cubs in Japan as well. And
Yep.
Sammy Sosa was part of the team. And obviously you covered many spring trainings when Sammy Sosa would be there. What was your take on kind of the reunion between the Cubs organization and Sammy Sosa?
Well, I just thought it was long overdue personally. I actually put together like a little documentary video of this Cub Talks video series that I had on. I called it Long Gone Sammy, I think it was. And because they had that documentary, like Long Gone Summer, I think, with him and McGuire documenting that home run chase of '98. And so I kind of did a little mini doc similarly. And basically, I felt, and I said this off the top, that, bury the hatchet. I mean, this guy was everything for a while. And I know there's the steroid issue, and maybe he didn't come completely clean, but it is what it is. I think it's like we're so far down past that we can get past these things. And it's like Sammy Sosa was a huge part of the Cubs organization for quite a while. And in fact, after that, the strike situation that happened in the mid 90s there, it really took something to bring baseball back. It wasn't the same. I could see that in the spring trainings after that, actually going back to, I think it was the spring of '95. A very interesting spring training for me because the Cubs said basically, we're going to, the players are still locked out. We're going to have a replacement player season in spring and start that way. So essentially I had to, would be like cross a picket line to say that I'm going to announce that. But, I was just a younger guy. And if I had said, no, I'm not going to do that, well, it'd be, well, bye, so I did. And we had like a handful of replacement games, which was weird because you didn't know any of these guys at the time, or very few. And then they got things settled and there was a break in between. And then they came back and had abbreviated spring. So I got to announce 2 Cubs spring trainings, very different spring trainings in that year. But getting back to that, Major League Baseball needed that in '98, in my opinion. And I think they looked the other way when steroid was happening. So, yeah, let's move on. It's 2025 for crying out loud,
Right. And when we think about that '98 season, we just yesterday was the anniversary of the passing of Harry Carey. Now, I got to tell you, I do have a lot of memorabilia here in my Cubs cave, but I do have a special place for this card right here. It is number 42 out of 400, a Tim Sheridan 40th anniversary card. And then when you flip this guy over right here, you can take a look. There you are with Harry Carey. And, I think about, it didn't matter when it was. Harry was one of those guys similar to you and me, Tim, that just sit there and wait for baseball to start again. Like, revived by baseball starting again. What are some of your favorite memories of Harry Carey at Hohokam?
Oh my God. Harry was, I just felt, being a young guy coming in there in the beginning in '84, and Harry'd only come over to the Cubs like 2 years later. I think it was '82 when he came in with the Cubs. So he was more of an icon elsewhere, all those years with the Cardinals and stuff. So it's odd to think that he could, work his way through Oakland and the White Sox and then become this Cubs, icon that he became. But so he's relatively new, but at the same time, WGN was exploding. And so I could tell there was an aura about him that people kind of gravitated towards him. And the fact that he was doing the singing of the 7th inning stretch with Take Me Out to the Ball Game, that was a big deal. And the fans loved that. And that was my kind of claim to fame, because at the old Hohokam, with the rudimentary audio system we had, he wasn't patched in with his microphone. So I would introduce him and he would come over and I would hand him my PA mic for him to sing the 7th inning stretch. I think I did that maybe over the course of like 13 years when that stadium we were together, about 100 times, because he would show up at games even when he wasn't working and be drinking a beer in the stands. You're just being a fan. So that's Harry. Yeah.
Yeah, it cracks me up. Another guy that I think really kind of embodied the spirit of spring training was Ron Santo. And you talked about how at Hohokam, like, the fans were right up against the booth where you guys were doing the PA and when they were broadcasting the games. And, one of the great things, Pat Hughes has put out a series called Voices of the Game, and he has one about Ron Santo. I think, I'm going with this one, but there's one time where Pat cannot see the game because someone's standing up in his view, and he basically turns over play-by-play to Ron Santo. He said, all right, Ronnie, you're going to be doing play-by-play. And you hear Santo off mic shouting, can you please sit down? But just kind of the thoughts of those games happening, and in between innings, people handing balls and stuff to get signed by Ron Santo. Just like I said, there are certain people, and definitely Tim, you're one of them, just kind of embody the spirit of what spring training is all about, which is just getting out of the cold, getting into the sun of Arizona, sitting back and just enjoying baseball and having fun. The outcomes of the game don't matter. You'd rather win than lose, no doubt about it. But it's really about watching baseball, having a good time, and getting ready for the season.
It really is. I say that to people who aren't like big baseball fans. It's like, hey, come on out to spring training just to enjoy a fantastic day at the park. You literally can come out, and even if you're not like focused and glued in on the baseball, which is okay because a lot of people even at Wrigley Field aren't, so you can have a beer, you can people watch. And here in Arizona, we're talking like 75, 80 degrees and sunshine when it's, probably pretty cold most days, at least like right around now up in the Midwest. So and then every seat's a great seat. It's an intimate environment. We have, we do have the biggest stadium at Sloan Park. We get over 16,000 in there when we sell it out, which is pretty incredible. We're far larger than any other team's ballpark in spring training. Like the Yankees, I think they only seat like 11,000 there. So when the Cubs are the first team that broke 100,000 fans to a spring training home season, and I think that was like maybe 84, 85, right in that era. They were the first team that broke 200,000 fans to a home. And then at Sloan Park, they went over 250,000 fans in a spring home season, which is really incredible when you think about it. It's only like, 15 to 18 games. So it's just, there's something special about the environment, because like Chicago rules apply. If a home run's hit, most of the time, unless like it's, some other team's fan, it's thrown back. That's what you do. So, it's got the kind of the light standards that kind of mimic Wrigley. It's got a real Wrigleyville West vibe. And it's just, the scores don't matter. You get to see the young stars who may be stars 4 years from now, and the veterans, the stars. So I think it's like some of the best baseball you can watch. And in Arizona, we actually have the most professional baseball facilities in one area in the entire country here, with all the different spring training sites and that. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and one thing that you said that really rings true. Number one, it does feel like you're in Wrigley Field, but like an intimate version of Wrigley Field. And Wrigley Field is intimate in and of itself, but
exactly.
It's like, even though it's the biggest ballpark in spring training, I've been to a lot of different ballparks out there, and it just has a totally different vibe. It literally is almost like you said, you don't even have to like baseball to go there and just kind of enjoy it. And the food is fantastic. The food trucks, like all the stuff, like it's just, to me, it's like a slice of heaven. And especially if you need a break from, like, we've been in like negative 20-degree wind chills out here the last couple of days. And it's just like, oh my God, I would just anything to just sit there and just go out and just enjoy it. And it's a blast. Tim, you have just started a new podcast that kind of combines a couple different your loves. Why don't you do me a favor and tell our listeners a little bit about what you got cooking?
Well, it's not actually a podcast. It's actually a tour, which is why I was a little late getting to you today, because I thought we were 1 more hour difference, but that happens when daylight savings time happens in, I don't know, another 4 weeks or whatever it is. I'm doing a brewery and baseball tour, combining 2 of my all-time favorite things. And what we're doing is we're taking groups of people I like to keep it small, which I think is great because you have more of a personal connection than, something that's too many people and unwieldy. So basically, it's kind of like 6 people or less, but it depends. I would go up to 8, but that's it. And we go to 3 different breweries, and we go around to different baseball sites, and I kind of do a little bit of a narration of what they're seeing, where we're going. And we do the same thing at the breweries because they're unique and they're local here too. So I love that. And while we're at the breweries, we can talk baseball, talk beer, do these kinds of things. And I have a treasure trove on my tablet that, when I'm telling stories and stuff, I can play videos and show photos and kind of tell these stories of the history of Cactus League and Arizona baseball and these kinds of things. And then work right into the modern times of the Cubs and, what we've had in 2016 and the World Series and that. So it's just one of those things where it's like the 2 things that I really love. I'm like, hey, I haven't heard of it before, but baseball and beer, that's the perfect double play. That's my slogan. So, so yeah, if you're out here and you want to go on a beer and baseball kind of tour, brewery and baseball tour, Sheridan's Brewery and Baseball Tour. You can find it on Facebook just by that name, and then online. So this is all just gotten going within the last week and a half. We're doing the tours as of this week. So it's about 2 tours a week. Starts at 3:00, goes till 7 because we need light so people can see the stuff. But yeah.
That sounds absolutely amazing. And so what we'll do is after we're done recording, when this gets released tomorrow, we'll make sure to get a good link so that people can go and find it. But Tim, where can they find you on the socials? Because I know you're already posting some things out there in spring training. Where can they find you on the socials?
Yeah, same thing. Which, I've got the Boys of Spring website where you can kind of find out. I'm always doing some different things there, but you can find out a lot of what's going on from that. Then from there, I have the Twitter, X, but that's there, so you can connect up on Facebook. And like I say, I got the Sheridan's Brewery and Baseball Facebook page, so that's out there. So and the YouTube, almost all my videos, which goes back to a ton. I had the first video posted on YouTube of Ryan Dempster doing his Harry Carey impersonation. Speaking of, Harry Carey. And so that was the first one posted only weeks after YouTube started. So it's the very first one. And of course, Ryan Dempster's Harry Carey impersonation is a lot like Will Ferrell's Harry Carey impersonation, but I digress.
100% agree, Tim, and I appreciate you jumping on. And again, hopefully, like I said, everyone checks out your ballpark and brewery tours. That sounds like a lot of fun. And Tim, what I love about you is you never stop with the ideas. They're always coming. They're flowing from you, man. And
I can't help it. It's what I do.
you are an icon of Mesa, and I appreciate you taking a few minutes to jump on today.
Hey, my pleasure. One last thing. I think I'm actually spinning towards about the middle of March. I'm going to do an auditorium type of thing that's going to be the history of Cactus League spring training and more, which the and more part is what you really want to know. And it's going to be a very kind of immersive video and audio kind of thing, something that's different from just having a person standing up and, talking to them. It'd be like an immersive experience. So look for that too, which you'll find out more information about that as we go.
All right. I love it. And you have a great game tomorrow, Tim.
Thank
the
you,
first game is Saturday.
I'll watch them have a good game tomorrow, and then I'll hopefully announce a great game on Friday when we get the Dodgers over at Sloan and, beat the crap out of them. Because, hey, if you're playing a game, you might as well win, even if it doesn't count, right?
Absolutely. Take care, Tim.
Adios, my friend.
It's all over.